Everyone, welcome to this Azure for Students workshop for SF Hacks 2022. My name is Jon Kotker. My pronouns are he and him, and I am the guy in the black shirt and the blue glasses, the Asian man. So this is how we are going to, this is our agenda for today. So we're going to talk a little bit about me in a very ego kind of way, and then we're going to talk about Azure for most of it. And I know you all have already gone through a lot of presentations with people talking at you. And so instead of me reading off of slides, I'm just going to demo a couple of things. So hopefully the demo gods and goddesses and God beings are upon me today, and they will go okay. And then we'll end with a couple of questions. And then that Q&A session can be about Azure, can be about Microsoft, can be about life in big tech, whatever floats your boat. Or we can end early, depending on whether or not you want to go back to hacking and starting to use Azure. So a bit about me. I'm a senior software engineer on the PowerPoint designer team. So if you have been using PowerPoint lately, you will have seen that there's this feature where if you start to make a slide, PowerPoint will offer up suggestions to you. That's called designer. So I'm a senior software engineer on the team that does that. I'm a queer person of color. I'm a cat parent. So you might hear some of them during the course of this workshop. I apologize if you do. I'm a linguophile. My goal in life is to learn as many languages as I can, or one of the goals in my life is to learn as many languages as I can. I don't know why it's not showing up the others. Oh yeah, okay. Also a powerlifter by hobby. I am enthusiastic about machine learning and AI. And my Microsoft superpower is that I look a lot like our CEO, to the extent that I won a Halloween party that we had in our team, and all I had to do was put on glasses and a hoodie. And so that's what I got. Can we see the cats? Yes, we will see the cats in Q&A. They're sleeping now, and I don't necessarily want to wake them up. People who own cats, you know how important it is to let sleeping cats lie. But I will try my best when we have time. Cool. So let's get to the meat of why we're actually here, or the impossible meat of why we're actually here. So the mission of Microsoft is to empower every person and every organization on this planet to achieve more. And so to that end, we have something called Azure. Now, what is Azure really? At a very high level, Azure is a cloud computing service created and hosted by Microsoft. Okay, so lots of interesting words there. So a cloud computing service is basically you're using our computers to do stuff that is relevant to you for a little fee. But you can use Azure for various things. You can use Azure to build powerful web apps in your favorite language. You can train models for your favorite machine learning projects. So if you have any projects for SF Hacks that are machine learning based, you can look into Azure for training any models you might need. You can also use, but if you don't want to train your own models, we have models too. You can use the existing APIs that we have to do stuff like face detection in a photograph, stuff like sentiment analysis. So if you look at a sentence, is the sentence positive or negative? And there are so many other machine learning and AI applications, some of which I'll go through today in the demo. And you can also use Azure to store a large amount of structured, unstructured data. So you can use Azure to back whatever databases you might have or whatever data you might need to hold, and so much more. So basically think of it as like we have a bunch of computers that we're using that we're offering to you all to use. And we also have a bunch of functionality already available for you to just plug in and use, and we're good to go. So that's Azure. So where do we start? Okay. So if you wanted to get started with Azure, I know it can be intimidating. I know it was intimidating at me at first when I was like, I don't know where to start. So thankfully, students, which I'm guessing a lot of SF Hacks participants are, you are eligible for $100 of free Azure credit for 12 months. So yeah, so basically, if you go to aka.ms/sfhacksazure, you can activate your free $100 credit. There's a little QR code that you can use right now to scan. But if you go there, you will be able to activate your $100 of free Azure credit. So we're basically giving you $100 to use for whatever you want to use in Azure credit, not actual money. So let's go ahead and I can show you exactly what that looks like because I have it up here. So if you go to aka.ms/sfhacksazure, you will see that you will see this page, and you can go ahead and click Start Free. And you will go through a sign up process, which I'm not going to belabor right now you all with it. But there's a quick sign up process where you use your student email to sign up, and then you follow a bunch of email prompts, and you're good to go. All right. So let's keep going with the presentation. So where can I learn more? Okay, so that's the first step. Once you have the Azure credit, now you actually have to use it. So where can you learn more? So if you go to aka.ms/sfhacks-education, you can access our education hub with very specific content for you. Student or hacker, it doesn't matter. So again, that's aka.ms/sfhacks-education. Again, there's a fancy QR code that you can use to go there, and we'll go there soon. And then when you're there, there's a lot. I will not lie, there's a lot of stuff happening there. But if you are confused, you don't know where to go, we have a bunch of quick start templates. And we'll go through 3 of them today. And so they're basically like templates that you can use to basically quick start your development and just get ready and hit the ground running for whatever projects you need to do. Again, if you're stuck, you can ask questions in the workshop specific Discord channel. It's hashtag intro to Azure. I'm not an Azure expert, but I can at least help you unblock you, or at least direct you to resources that might be able to help you. But yeah, if you have any questions, I will be periodically checking that channel. Okay, so let's get started. So let's demo. We have something called the Cognitive Services API. It's basically a bunch of machine learning and artificial intelligence API that you can just plug into. So let's go to, so if you go to aka.ms/sfhacks-education, you will hit this page. Education overview. I'm going to make this a little larger. Okay. So you will notice that I have my, can everyone see this, by the way? Is this font good enough for people? Let me know if you can't see it. Okay, cool. So notice that I have, I literally got my credit yesterday. So I have it for a year and I haven't used much of it. It'll actually, you need to actually use a lot of Azure to be able to use $100. $100 is actually a really good deal. So I would say use it when you can, or if you can. So if you go to templates, okay, there's a bunch of stuff you can do. I am interested in doing machine translation. So I'm going to deploy something called the Cognitive Services Translate API. So I'm going to translate stuff. All right, it's telling me to deploy. Cool, really cool. I can go ahead. Hopefully this goes well. I'll pick my account. Okay. So what I'm going to be seeing soon is a bunch of screens to help me get started. So yeah, I'm using my Azure for Students subscription. Now I'll need to create a resource group. Now you can vaguely think of resource group as kind of a folder in Windows Explorer terms. So I don't have any folders available. So I'm just going to create a new one, and I'm going to call it SFHacks 2022. Okay, the new folder, it's a new resource group. So I can basically pack all my deployments into one folder. Let's see. I want all my machines to be on the west of US because that's closest to me. It doesn't really matter if you don't care about speed as much. And translate location, global. Again, doesn't matter. I think global is the default. So if you don't specify one, you can specify global. And then I'm going to review and create. Validations passed. Great. So I've entered everything that I need to. I can read this or I can choose not to. And all right, my deployment is complete. Okay, great. So now basically what's happening is that I have some code running on some computer somewhere that allows me to ask it questions that relate to machine translation. But how do I actually use this? Well, like most developers, I'm sure, I use documentation. I try to read the documentation. So I will go back to where I was and I will say, okay, Azure Cognitive Services. That seems interesting. Let me go there. Okay, so now we have documentation. All right, what am I interested in? So I can do a lot of things. I can do stuff relating to vision. So basically allowing a computer to be able to look at an image and understand it. Language, speech, I can use it to make decisions, such as detecting anomalies. So if you have a lot of data, how can you detect what data is anomalous? So this is good for like security things. And there's a bunch of others. But right now I'm really curious about language. So let me do that. Now language, natural language processing, as it's called, is very broad. There's a lot of stuff you can do in trying to get a computer to understand language. You can ask the computer to extract information. So like, here's a bunch of text and try to understand it. You can ask it to classify text. Like sort of, if you have a text document, is it mostly positive? Is it mostly negative? What is it about? You can have it answer questions. You can have it understand conversations. Or let's do what we want, which is to translate text. Okay. All right. Okay. So now I have a bunch of documentation. The great thing about this documentation, and I will keep mentioning this over and over again, is that there's a lot of useful things that will help you quick start. So I'm interested in text translation specifically, and there's a quick start. Okay, let me go to quick start. So blah, blah, blah. Okay, so for the rest of this talk, I'm going to be using Python, but don't fret. We have other languages that you can use. You can use C#, you can use Go, Java, Node.js, Python, whatever floats your boat. I'm just going to use Python right now because that's what I'm most used to, and also what I think is most understandable by a lot of people. So now what that does is that you have a bunch of code here. Cool. All right. Let me copy this code. This is useful. Okay, let me go to VS Code, which is my preferred IDE. I'm going to make a new Python file. Okay. All right. So let's paste that in here. Cool. All right. And then let me save it. Save it as translation py. Cool. All right. So let's walk through this step by step because there's a lot of information. Did I save it? It is. It's saving. All right. Let's let it save. What? Hi. Save it again. Why did it not get saved? Oh, I guess I already did. Okay, cool. Phew. All right, so let's walk through it step by step. So, okay, we have a bunch of imports, sure. Now I have to add my subscription key and my endpoint. So now this is where it's useful to go back to the deployment that we just had. So it's looking for a subscription key. Okay, let me go back to our deployment. So that was here. It was here. My deployment is complete. I'm looking for a subscription key. Let me see if there are details. What details exist? Sorry, go to resource. Haha, there we go. Okay. So now there should be subscription keys somewhere. Manage keys. The subscription keys you can think of as basically your unique identifier. So like you have this cognitive services API running on our code, but you need a special key to identify yourself to that code. So we can show the keys. All right, I'm going to copy it to the clipboard. I'm going to bring it here, paste it here. Great, awesome, save it. What is my endpoint? It's already provided, so I don't have to worry about that just yet. What was my location? Well, I said global to start off with. That's fine. Okay, so this is all stuff that we're just setting variables. So what's my subscription key? What endpoint am I talking to? So endpoint is basically, you can think of it as the service that you're going to talk to. So the service you're going to talk to is api.cognitive.microsofttranslator.com. So basically, it's a translation endpoint. And global is your location because that's what we specified when we set it up. And we're going to ask it to translate. Cool. So there's some interesting stuff here. What we're basically going to be doing is we're going to be setting up what is called we're going to be talking to the service. And for that talking, we need to set up what is called an HTTP request. Now, a lot of you might be familiar with that is, but for those of you who are not already familiar with it, it's basically how you load up a web page. So when you load up a web page, you're sending a request to a service somewhere, and that's usually an HTTP or HTTPS request. So that request has a bunch of stuff. Don't worry about the headers. The headers are not the most important thing here, but the params are going to be interesting. And we're basically saying, okay, I want to translate from English to whatever DE and IT is, which I believe is German and Italian. And I can give it the text that I want to translate. And then I'm going to send the request. And I'm going to get a response. And I'm going to print that response. So walking through it again, step by step. I'm identifying myself to the service that is going to translate stuff for me. I'm going to tell it exactly what to translate from and which languages to translate to. I'm going to tell it what text to translate. And I'm going to make it fun by saying SFX, just to make it more, how are you? And then I'm going to send this request to my service. And then I'm going to get a response from the service. And then I'm going to print it out. That's pretty much going to be the flow of how you talk to Azure. You construct the request, you send the request to the service along with your identifying information, so your subscription key. And then you're going to get a response and you're going to print that out. So let's try it out. So enough talk, let's do it. Yeah. Okay. So if you run it, look at my terminal below. Sandy. Please work. This goes a little slow. Oh, there we go. Okay. So I said, hello, SFX, how are you? And it told me, okay, hello, SFX, we get this deal in German, or ciao, SFX, come stai in Italian. Right. That's pretty cool. I just typed in the text and it got translated. So that's going to be useful if you're considering translating a bunch of stuff. Now, let's say that I wasn't really doing something for the German or Italian audiences. I want to try something for Japanese and Indian audiences or Hindi-speaking audiences. So, okay, well, I need to know how to represent that language. I need to know what its language code is. So let's go back to our page, our giant page of information. Where was it? It was here. Okay. Let's see. Where can I go? Where can I go? Ooh, language support. That seems interesting. Okay. So I said I wanted to do Japanese and Hindi. So Hindi is HI, hi, and Japanese is JA. We have a lot of interesting languages. I, for one, did not know we supported that now, but apparently we do. That's pretty cool. So it's, what was it? It was HI for Hindi and JA for Japanese. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, JA, Japanese. I can add another one. And just for fun, let's toss in, what was it? I think there was Arabic in here somewhere. Yeah, Arabic. Let's do that for fun too. Okay, save it and run it. Okay, it's going to take a while to talk to the service, and it's going to come back with the information that I care about. There we go. I think it did a decent job, right? Hindi is Namaste SFX, tum kaise ho. Japanese is Konnichiwa SFX, o genki desu ka. And Arabic is Marhaba SFX, kaif halik, which, you know, sure. All right, so that's pretty much what you can do with translation. Yeah. All right, so we gotten that done. Let's go and talk about the next thing we can also do, which is vision. So we can also deploy a computer vision API. And then I'm going to deploy one. Cool. So same process. Go ahead, deploy. I'm done with the text translation demo for now. So I'm going to close the language stuff. Uh-oh. Cool. All right. So same thing as before. I'm using my Azure for Students subscription, $100 free credit, aka.ms/sfx Azure. I'm going to use my existing folder, which I created earlier, and everything else is filled in for me. I can go ahead and review. Yep, validation passed. Let's deploy. So now some machine somewhere is setting up my computer vision deployment. I'm going to go to the resource. It's going to have a bunch of information that I care about. So now let's go back to where we were, and let's look at Azure Cognitive Services again. Now this time we're going to be looking for vision. So I'm going to documentation. What was vision? Vision, computer vision. Haha. Okay, so I'm interested today in doing image analysis. So looking at an image and trying to figure out what it is. Okay, so let me copy this code. Copy. Let's set that up here. Paste it. Cool. So it's a bunch of imports. And I think some documentation does a good job of this, but like it'll talk you step by step as to what exactly is happening. Okay, now same thing as before, we need to provide it a subscription key. And also this time we need to provide it an endpoint. So subscription key, again, is your unique identifier to the Azure service. So let's go ahead and find it. So I'm going to go back to my deployment. Look at, I think it's keys. Yeah. I'm going to copy the key. I'm going to go back here. Cool. And I need an endpoint. So I'm going to go back here. Endpoints here. Right. Nice. Cool. Let me save this now so that okay, so now okay, so now I have a bunch of stuff I need to do. I need to create a client, which is what this documentation is telling me. So a client is basically your intermediary to the Azure service. And now once you create a client, you can get an image URL that you want to analyze. So that's that. Let's look at this image first. What is this image they're giving us? Let's go here. Oh, okay. It's a Colosseum-like thing. So let's go back and, oh, yeah, here we go. Okay, so now we're going to copy this code, and apparently this code will give me a description of the image. That sounds cool. Okay, so let me go ahead and do that. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and run this and see what happens. So I'm going to clear out my terminal. I'm going to run this now. By the way, you don't have to use VS Code. You can use any IDE you want. I'm just using VS Code because I actually think it's really awesome, and I highly recommend it. Okay, so it's describing an image, and it says it's a large stone structure with many arches with Colosseum in the background with a 27% confidence. That's cool. You can also do other stuff. You can get a category of the image. So let's try and figure out what the category is. I'm going to go ahead and paste that in here as well. And let's see if we're able to get it. It says a large stone structure, and it's a building with 31% confidence, and it's outdoor with 4% confidence. I think that's already pretty awesome. But just to just to be sure, this is not just something that just because they gave it. We're going to try a different image. So I'm going to go to the SF Hacks website. I'm going to pour around and see if there's anything that I could use as an image. Okay, this seems like a good image. I'm going to copy it. Copy a link to the image. I'm going to paste it in the image link place that I had earlier. Okay, it's some guy named Kevin. All right, let's run it. Cool. All right, so I'm really curious to see what Azure thinks of this image. Okay. It says it's a man wearing glasses with 54% confidence. That's pretty cool. And it's a person with 98% confidence. That's also really cool. So you can think of like the various things that you can do with this sort of AI or API. It's sort of like, okay, maybe you can use it to find people, find the people in an image, or sort of identify what the image is about. And there are lots of hacks that you can use this information. Yeah, Kevin, yep, 90% confident that you're also a person. Yeah, I'm not sure what that 2% is about. That other 2%. All right, so that's pretty much using the Cognitive Services API. And I am now going to do one last demo before I go ahead and I'm done with the workshop. Because I'm going to build and deploy a web app with what is called Python Flask. Now, again, you don't have to use Python. You don't have to use Flask. Python is my preferred language. Flask is my preferred web app deployment service. You can use Django. You can use any other language that you think you want to use. Azure has support for a variety of languages. So again, it's whatever you want to use. But for today, I'm going to be using Python Flask. And there are equivalents in other languages. So let me go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go to, where was I? I think it's somewhere here, deploy. And even if I'm not sure where it is, I can probably do web app. Web app Python Flask. Cool. All right, so I'm going to deploy a new resource specifically for my web app. Gonna pick me. All right, awesome. So same rigmarole. Azure for Students subscription using my existing SF Hacks 2022 resource group that I created about 20 minutes ago. It's validated, it's created. Hooray. Okay, cool. All right, so it's in progress. I'm just going to wait for it to finish. In the meantime, I'll check continue. Okay, yeah. Okay, I'm going to close all of the stuff from the image stuff to not clutter our workspace. Cool, awesome. So now going back to where we were, it's in progress. Let's give it some time. I'm going to go to Azure Flask. And there has to be a quick start somewhere here. Oh, it's right there. Okay, so let me work through the process. So I need to clone a repository, which probably has some sample code. I'm going to do that. CLS, clear it out. Clone, 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 clone. Done. And I'm going to cd into that directory. Because, yeah. And now it's telling me, okay, I need to cd into that directory, which I have done. I need to create a virtual environment for this app, which I will now do. So I'm going to copy it. Actually, I'm going to type it out. So my machine doesn't understand QI, understands Python. So a virtual environment, for those who are not aware, is sort of like an environment you can create temporarily within your terminal to play around in. It's kind of like a sandbox. So you have to first create one and then activate it. Hopefully everything's okay. Are you not working? Or maybe you are. Just taking a while. Okay, let's give it some time. And I'm gonna activate the virtual environment when it's ready. Oh, good. Okay. So now once I created the virtual environment, I'm going to activate it. Virtual environment, activate. You can tell that it's activated because there's a venv here. And I'm going to install some things that are required. I'm going to wait for that to finish. And then once that's finished, I'm going to actually run it. So let's wait for it to finish installing things. So let's recap. I've deployed a resource that allows me to host a web app. I am creating a temporary virtual environment for Python. I'm going inside that virtual environment, and I'm going to start playing. Playing is the fun part. So I'm going to use Flask to run. Okay. Okay, awesome. So it says that if I look at this particular web address and port 5000, I should have something. Let me go there. So let's see what it was, 127.0.0.1, 5000. I love you, 5000. Cool. Okay, cool. So this is a temporary web app that is hosted on my local host, my local machine. Let's actually walk through it. So what's my name? My name is Jon Kotker. Hello, nice to meet you. Awesome. So now I have a really simple Flask app. Let's see if I can spice things up a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the files that were created. So remember, I cloned a repository. So I'm going to go into the repository and then, oh, app.py. So one of the reasons I really like Flask is because it's super intuitive to sort of understand what's happening. So I have my web app, and it's basically saying, okay, if the web app sees just a regular good old /, it means it's the home page, right? If it sees something called hello, it's the hello page. But now I'm going to make one specifically for SFX, and I'm going to call it SFX. And you're going to return whatever text you want to show, whatever HTML you want to show. So I'm going to be like return h1, hello, and welcome to the special SFX page. Okay, I'm going to save that. I'm going to reboot my server. So I killed it. I'm going to reboot it again. Flask run. Cool. All right. So now if I go to this page, or it's also localhost, you can call it localhost 5000 SFX. Hey, I made a new page. It's a special SFX page. Cool. All right, that's great, but it's all on my machine. I want to share it with you all. I want to share it with the world. I don't necessarily want to just keep it on my machine because that's odd. So it's not odd, but like I want you all to enjoy it as well. So there's some stuff you can do here, and you can follow the instructions here. There's a lot of instructions going on, so I'm going to go through it really quickly, but you can do it also. Just follow the instructions. It says, okay. I'm going to pull this into my second screen so you can see what's happening on this screen. Cool. All right, so I'm going to, it says, go to the home page, look for app services. Services, I can spell. Okay, app services, and then it says create. So I'm going to create a web app. My resource group, I'm going to give my web app a name. I'm going to call it Jon SFX. I'm going to publish some code. I'm using Python 3.9. I am in the West. If this all seems like magic to you, don't worry. The Quickstart page will go through step by step. I'm just looking at it on my other screen. That's why you're not seeing it. And everything else is okay. Keep going. You know what? I'm going to skip the rest. And review and create. Yeah, create. Okay, I'm creating a fresh deployment for my new web app. Okay. In progress. Wait for it to finish. Wonder. And then in my the quick start says my VS Code should have something called Azure Portals, which it does, or Azure App Service, which it does. And I'm going to wait for it to get my new app. There it is. Okay, awesome. So I created this new fancy web page, or my new fancy web app, and I'm going to deploy to it. So deploy to web app. I'm going to browse and look specifically for the folder that I created. Okay. Yes, I would like to improve performance. Yes, I also want to deploy it. Okay, so it's deploying right now. If you look at the bottom right, it's deploying. I'm going to wait for it to finish deploying, and then magic will happen. This could take some time. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about Azure while this is happening. Because I know this was a lot of information. So if you want me to go through something again, I can go through it. But if you have any specific questions about Azure, I can try to answer them. You can leave a message in the chat, or you can come off mute.
Hi.
Hi.
I had a question. I'm not too familiar with the cloud deployment services yet, but is it like any other one where you can kind of, I guess, integrate also like SQL and databases and kind of connect all that for your application?
Yeah, you can. I'm sure there's a way to. I'm sure. Basically, if your web app needs to talk to a database, for instance, then you have to get the database up and running as well, along with the web app. But I'm sure you can deploy both the web app and the database. In fact, I'm looking at the screen right now and I see a fancy page for databases. So I'm sure there's something that you can do over there.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yep. I wonder why it's taking so long to start, but yeah, I guess that's Q&A time. Yeah, let's wait for it to finish deploying. In the meantime, I'm pretty much done with my demonstrations. So again, best of luck on your projects, all of you amazing hackers. Again, go to aka.ms/sfhacksazure to redeem your $100 credit as a student. And you can also go to aka.ms/sfhackseducation to look at all of the Quickstart templates that I talked about today. And you can also review this recording, or you can leave a message in the Discord channel for this workshop, and I will get to them when I can. The question here in the chat is that credit tied to a student ID? I believe so. I believe your credit is tied to a specific student email address. When I tried to do it, I used my college email address or my college alumni email address, and yeah, it had me sort of confirm that was a valid email address. So I got a bunch of emails that were telling me to confirm that this was actually me. Is there an expiration date to the offer? Nope. The same offer was available last year, is going to be available this year. The $100 credit itself will expire in a year. So I'm not sure what happens after a year. I believe you might have to use a different ID to redeem it, but you have it for a year. Let me see if there's, let me see, it's a deployment. Okay, cool. So the deployment's completed. What was this entire process for? Well, I'll show you. So like, if you go to the deployment, you can be like, hey, Jon-sfhacks.azurewebsites.net. Oh my God, it's my page. How do I know it's my page? Well, /sfhacks. Ha! So you all can actually access it right now. It's no longer on my local machine. You all can check it out. It's not a very fancy website, but this is a way you can deploy a web app for free, free-ish. But yeah. And yeah, I have nothing else to show you. We can go through another example if you wanted to drill down again, but 15 minutes, you can pick my brain and I'll try to answer them. Oh, I think we're in luck. Hang on. Thank you, Dr. Jin. Here we go. She just woke up. Hi. Her name is Ari, short for arigato. She's a cat.